Yep.
All right, perfect. Well, we'd like to welcome you to the NACAA 365 meeting from the Teaching and Educational Technologies Committee. My name is David Yates. I'm with the University of Tennessee, and on with me today is Kelly McGowan from the University of Missouri. And today we want to discuss how to maximize a PowerPoint for your presentations. We'd like for you to learn some new tools that are built within PowerPoint that can enhance your presentations that we all use with our clients. Hopefully you'll pick up a lot of tips from that, but we also want to go back to some basics for presentations, some things that I think that we forget about that we get with the razzle dazzle of things that PowerPoint can do, but we're trying to communicate effectively with our clients. So let's go ahead and get started. When we are looking at PowerPoint in particular, Microsoft Office has three different versions or three different flavors. The traditional Office suite, right now, most people are using Office 2019 or Office 2021. And these are the versions that I'm looking at that our land-grant universities are typically using. And we have an A3 or an A5 license for these. Going from that, many of our institutions have now gone and switched to Office 365. This is the newer version of Office. It has some online components and things built into it. It's also the one that is changing quicker because it's more online based to where your traditional Office 2019 and 21, once you install those, you'll get some minor updates, but nothing big. As we move to 365 and past that, those updates are easier for Microsoft to push out, so we see more changes in that. The newest version, and it really works with the Office 365, is that you'll see Office Live. And this is the online version. This works and integrates very well within Teams. You'll see that with it. It is all online. It's going to connect to your OneDrive account. It's made to do that. We'll talk about some specific things that it will do. You need to realize that different features are going to work with different versions. I'll point out as I go through, these type of things will work with these particular versions. So think about what you're using at your university and realize, depending on the version that you have, you might have to switch. Today, I'm using a PowerPoint Live because some of the specific things I want to demonstrate, it's only available in this version. Let's start out first with collaborating with others. And this works with Office in general, so it's going to work with PowerPoint. This is something that Kelly and I did with this presentation, is that where you can come in, take your presentation, save it to OneDrive, or if you're working in Microsoft Teams and part of that team, you actually share it to a SharePoint uh, location, same type of thing, is just online storage. If you have created the file, what you're going to do is go up and click on the share button on the top right corner of PowerPoint. I'll show you where this is in just a second. Then you can invite one or more recipients of this file. Now, don't be doing what I do sometimes. I get in a hurry. You do have to check what kind of option that you're giving that person. The default option is where they can view the file. That could be a Word document, Excel document, a PowerPoint slide deck, any of that. If you set the option for view, someone else can look at it, but they cannot make any changes to it. If you want to have that interaction to be able to collaborate with others, you would want to change that to the edit mode. And then you can change that later on if you want to. Any changes that you or the people that you share this file with are going to save back to this one file that has been shared. So you're not emailing files back and forth to each other. Well, which version am I working on? And I know we've probably all done that multiple times. And then we start editing a file that's not the one that we meant to do. If you open up your file, this works in, again, Word, Excel, or PowerPoint, and you open it with the online version, multiple people can work and edit on that file all at the same time. And it will note who is making changes to where on the slide. So it's really, really cool about what you can do. You see on the screen, there's a lot more information about some of these topics. So what I've done is included a QR code. You can take your smart device, use the camera to capture that QR code, or if you don't have that, just make a note. I've got a tiny URL created for you, and this is linking back to a Microsoft article that gives you more information about the collaborating feature. So the tiny URL is tiny.utk.edu/max PP1. And I have 4 of these, and the URLs will just have a 1, 2, 3, or 4 at the end of them. So they're all the same, and they'll each take you to a Microsoft article. Now, to show you just where that share button is, I'm going to stop my share, or see if I can exit out PowerPoint, my slide view, and I am using the live version of PowerPoint, so it's in a web browser. If you look on the upper right-hand side, you'll see a share button. And then you can share the file. You can copy a URL link to it, or you can link to this particular slide. And then you're managing the access. That would be after you have shared it. You can then pick what you want to do. If you want to give someone else different rights to the file, things like that. So that's all built within it. You'll also see in your Office 365, it will have that same share button that's in the upper right-hand corner that you can get to it. Now, you can even go back and say, well, I'm not using either of those. You can open up your OneDrive account, and from there, you can share the file the same way. Again, Microsoft typically likes to share easily within your organization, but you can also share those files to people who are outside your organization. So that's pretty fun right there. We're now going to switch back there. And Kelly, just give me a thumbs up. I did get it switched back. We're talking about accessibility features now.
Yes, we can see it.
Great. Accessibility features is something that has been incorporated within the Microsoft suite fairly recently. Right now, this feature is available in all versions of Microsoft Office, and we're talking about PowerPoint in particular. We know that accessibility is in the forefront for all of our public institutions. And to keep this in mind, we've been doing some, I guess, manual hacks to this type of thing. But now that we're seeing that more of this is available in a more automated way, it's a tool. It's not 100% correct all the time, but it also will give you some ideas and things to look at. One of the things is that if you're distributing a presentation, and we know that for our websites, we're supposed to use the alt text tag for images. And what that is just a visual description if you use any graphics, photos or whatever in your presentation. So if someone was to look at this and they're visually impaired and they're using a screen reader, it would actually read to them what that particular image was. So our accessibility check will be able to do that for you. I've got a link to a longer Microsoft article knowledge base that talks more about this. But some things that it will do, it will report back and it will say, well, are there errors? Are there warnings, tips, and intelligent services? So errors are like the most critical, warnings are a little bit less critical, tips are less than that, and then intelligent services are less than that. Again, checking for alt text. It will also do the inspect without color for like colorblind. And again, I had never thought about that until I had a coworker who was colorblind. I didn't know it for a long time, but then he mentioned that and said it. And I'm like, oh, okay. I need to be careful of that. Oops. So if we go back and you look at your accessibility, where do we find that out? If you go to the review tab, let me switch back to the classic ribbon, and you'll have the review tab in all versions of your Office products. You can then come in and say check accessibility. And over on the right-hand side of the screen, it's going to give you all of the things that it thinks could be wrong with your presentation. So it says I have 13 missing alt text. And again, if you just open those up, it's going to tell you on what slide and what portion that it needs something on. So I've got a few images on this slide deck. The QR codes, it counts as an image too. Missing slide title, if I didn't put that in. Again, these may be things that are okay that you intended to do, but here's a quick way to give you a check just to see what's going on. And after you make those changes, you can have it to recheck that too. But that QR code takes you to the article on accessibility and the same tiny URL. Just end it with max PP2, and that'll talk about accessibility. To me, this is probably one of the 3 game changer things that we in Extension, can look at to really help our audiences. With the online version of PowerPoint, the live version that it'll call itself, you can add live subtitles to your slide deck or your presentation. Now, we probably have seen this within Zoom. That's an option that you can come and turn on the closed captioning. Well, we can do this within PowerPoint too. Now, the caveat is going to be you're doing it through the live version, so it really prefers to have a connection to the internet. I know that can be a problem if we're doing a field day out in a barn somewhere. Something that we might, keep in mind. But we can come in and we can turn on these live subtitles to our presentation. Well, that's great. And even if someone is not hearing impaired, having those come up at the bottom of the screen can be helpful. Where this can get even more interesting, and I think a more valuable tool for some of us, is that you can select what is the spoken language that is going into it and what the subtitle language is going to be. So for instance, if you have an audience that maybe has a large Hispanic population that doesn't speak English as their preferred language, native language, you could come in, select the spoken language as English, for example, and then change your subtitle language to Spanish. If you do this, you're going to need a microphone. So you're either going to have to rely on the microphone built into your computer, or you can get an external microphone. So just so it can hear you. It is it's an AI type feature. So it learns and will get better recording and translating what you speak into the written word the more you use it. So I have a Southern accent, so it has to learn about my speech versus your speech. There's the QR code, and again, the Max PP3 will give you a link to some notes on this. Let me show you where this is, and it's just super cool. So if I come in, oops, I need to go up a slide. And I'm looking under slideshow, that's the tab. And then you can tell it use subtitles. It's a checkbox. You turn it on and off. And then under that, you have an option for your subtitle settings. Under this, you can then choose what is the spoken language. That's the input side to it. And then your second option is what do you want the output language to be? So if I set both of mine to English, and then let me swap back off, and then down below that, you can then choose where do you want the subtitles to be at. So let me just leave this on. And as I speak for the next slide or two, you'll be able to see this happen. So I'll just go back into my presentation mode. And so it has started subtitles. And you can see that being shown at the bottom of the screen. So think about as you're doing presentations to people, and not even from a translation point of view, but just to let people, if they do have a hearing impediment, they may be able to see the screen and read it. Now, as we get into another feature, if I leave this on, this can be even more powerful as we look at it. And I'm going to leave the subtitles on just for a little bit so you can see how that works. So the next thing to think about in PowerPoint is that when you're in the presentation mode or the slideshow mode with PowerPoint, did you realize that you have access to these drawing tools? Now, if we're doing something within Zoom, we have those annotate tools available, and these are very similar. But if you're doing a live presentation in your office, at the community center, or even in a barn somewhere, you're not doing it on Zoom. So what tools are available in PowerPoint? If you come down with your mouse or trackpad on your laptop and come down to the very bottom on the left-hand side corner, you're going to see there are some tools available. This gets back into, stopping and starting your slide deck, ending, all of those kind of things. But you're going to see a little pen icon, and those are your drawing tools. If you click on that, you'll see that you have a laser pointer, a pen, a highlighter, and then eraser, and then erase all ink. So if I go up and select laser pointer, as you move your mouse on the screen, you'll see the little red laser pointer. You can change the color of the laser pointer from the choices down at the bottom. So I could make it a green laser pointer. Nope, excuse me. There's one, I think it will go to one other color, and it may only be red now. You can change the pen color to be different colors, and you can draw. And again, I just used my mouse to do that. I can use the highlighter, again, changing colors of it, where I can draw and highlight. You can take the eraser and you can erase different parts of it, or I can click on the eraser and say erase all ink on the slide. So as you're talking about things, we can draw and annotate on them and then clear it off. That does take a little bit more skill set, I think, to be able to, swap back and forth and make sure that you're doing that in a very easy fashion for the people that you're working with. But times like that, if you don't have that laser pointer with you, and sometimes the laser pointer doesn't always show up on the screen, this is an alternative to that. So let's come in and look at the drawing tools that are under the design tab and draw tab. This is options that are available. And let me go back. The drawing tools, they're available in all of the versions of Microsoft Office and PowerPoint. As we move to the drawing tools, there have been some enhancements made in the Office 365 and in the live version. You may look at this as being, really just purely optional, and that's fine. But don't worry about that. I think one of these things, there's other ways to do maybe part of this, but you can come in and use this if you find it useful to you. On this drawing tools, there's a ruler that has been added. Now, there's always been a ruler that you can turn on at the top of your Word and your PowerPoint documents, but this is an actual ruler that's going to show up on the page. And when you have this ruler and position it where you want, you can then draw these straight lines like on top of the ruler, or use the ruler as the guide. The first and second and the third time I used it, I thought it was a bit strange, a little hard. But then it's like I can see maybe some use for it. I know the Office 365 version gives you a few more options that you have on the top of the line that you draw. The live version is a little bit more basic. To get into that, I have another PowerPoint slide. There it is that I have open here. And when I come in and look at this, if I go to my Draw tab, and sometimes it will say ruler, sometimes it will say stencils. It's the same thing either way. If I click on that, it then drops this ruler at a 45-degree angle. If you want to change the angle of that, if you have to press Shift F6. The Microsoft note says you can use your left and right arrow key to then change the angle of that. Honestly, I have never gotten that to work so far. But if I take the wheel that I have on my mouse, after I do the Shift F6, then I can just use the wheel up and down and I can change the angle. So I have this ruler. I'm going to come up to my pen. And if I want to change any of the options of that pen, I can make it, thicker. I can also change the color to it. And now if I take my mouse and draw it right up above that ruler, I have a perfectly straight line. I can turn the ruler off and there's my line. that line becomes, an object on your slide. So you can come in and you can continue to draw with it. Now, to get rid of it, you do have to go like lasso it up to get rid of it, and then you can delete. But it's just a way to give you some more options that you have. Is this something that you're probably going to use a lot? I would say it's on the lesser end of the skills, but this is one of the newer things they've just added into PowerPoint recently. So you can come back and we'll look at that. And this is the last tiny URL because those things just had a little bit more information that you would want to go back and read to figure out how to use this for your presentation. And the URLs, the Microsoft knowledge bases are very long. So you can snap a picture of the QR code, or you can come in and do the tiny url.edu/max pp4. And we had a couple of questions I was going to stop and take care of right now. Yes, this video is going to be posted on the NACAA website. You'll be able to find that later after Scott gets the recording and post it. And then Anne has asked, does this work with the laser pointer in your hand too, or do you have to be using the mouse pad and to use those tools? No, this is not going to work with a handheld laser pointer. Those are two separate things. But if you had one of those, you could use it. But if you were in a case where you didn't have it or where it wasn't going to show up very good on the screen, you could use your mouse or the touch pad on a laptop to be able to come in and get that. Thanks for the questions. Let's move on. Here we go. To me, we talked about the transcription that we have turned on right now. This is probably one of the game changer moments. If you've not found this yet, I challenge you to come in and look at this. With the PowerPoint live version, so you're going to need access to the web in order to do this, you can create interactive live polls into your presentation. Now, I know there's a lot of other software that some of us have access to where you can embed things within a presentation, but this is all within the Microsoft infrastructure. So audience members that have a smartphone or smart device connected to the web can then access these polls and quizzes online, and you can see the results of them and display them all within your PowerPoint presentation. What you'll be doing is that you're using the Microsoft Forms feature that's in the Office 365 version. That's the online version. I will find it and suggest to you that you would want to create this form first, and then you can easily insert it into your slide deck. These are typically going to be knowledge checks that you can insert into your slide deck, or they could be a simple evaluation. All your results are going to be stored in the Microsoft form. It's fairly quick and simple. You can also come in and ask for short answers or even one-word responses. Those one-word or very short responses can also be displayed as a word cloud. So let's look at that. Again, I think this is one of our game changer items that we have available to us. As I go to the next slide, it's going to come in and talk about, are we going to present for an interactive meeting or collect the responses online? I want to do this for an interactive meeting. And I'm going to just insert a new slide. And then I'm going to the Insert tab. Where did it go? Now it's gone, of course. If you do this live, that's what happens to you. You should have an option here from the online version where it's going to say Forms. I know I've got it down. If I click on this other slide, here's my form pulling up. But what you should have is an option that's going to be on the right-hand side when you click on, it'll say Insert Form as one of your options from your insert. And it's not under slideshow. I know. Let me check one other thing, see if it will let me from this one. Nope. All right. Trust me, I know this works. I went in and created a Microsoft form, and I'm going to pull this up in presentation mode in just a second, but it's going to build you a slide that's going to have that question that you have built on it. And you can build multiple questions if you wanted to, but if you're not going to show it sequentially, I would build one form for each question that you're going to have in your slide deck. So if I come in, let me get rid of that one. I'm going to come back to the slide we were at. Select to the next one. This is when you click on the forms, this is what you're going to get, the option. And here is the form, and it does take a second for that to load. So if you have a smartphone and you want to scan that QR code, or if you wanted to type in the URL that you see there, you can come in and you should see this poll, and you should be able to check what your answer is. It will come up on your device and you can click on that. This, will be live, and it will come in and it will give you the number of people that have responded. And then you can switch it over to the bar and it will show you the responses as they come in live. I don't have permission to view respond. That's the one trick to this, is you do have to set it for all people to do that, not just within the organization. And that's what I thought I had done. I don't think it's going to give me an option to do this. That's what I was afraid was going to happen. We'll pretend that it works, but this is something to go back and come in and try. I've used this once, and it was a very, I guess it was unexpected for my attendees to see something like that they were going to do it. Um, it is quick and easy. It's something, when you set up Microsoft Forms, uh, the trick to it is that you've got to tell Microsoft to allow not people just within your organization, but anybody can come in and use this. That's basically the biggest hindrance that any of us will experience, because everyone that we present to is not within our organization with the university. The other one that I did is, again, this was just a second question. What one word best describes NACAA? So you could come in and put this in and it would show like a word cloud at the end. So if thinking about from an evaluation response, this is something that you can come in and do. Sorry, that's not working exactly right. I was afraid of this could happen, but in testing yesterday, it worked. So I was hopeful that it would work again today. Next to the last tip that I have is talking about sharing your presentation live with others. This also is only a live feature, so you have to be connected to the web. You can share your presentation with others using a QR code or a URL link. And I'm going to do this. It's simple, it's easy. People can look at your presentation on their smart device. And since I have the live transcript coming up on the screen, those live transcripts will also appear on that mobile device. So when I think about probably the three most important changes that have happened in PowerPoint, those have all happened into the live/online version. And when you have your transcription, when you can do the live polls, and now we can live share our presentation with someone else. I think this is a huge game changer for us. What you'll get is a code that will pop up like this on the page. I don't think this one's going to work because it's just a screen capture, but let me show you how to do it. It's really easy. And you could do this at the very start of your presentation. So you're coming up to the share slide deck, and you're going to the slideshow tab. And then you're going to click on the present live. If I click the little arrow coming down, this is where our options are that we would want to make sure and pay attention to. Only people in your organization, this is the same thing that happens to your forms. So you would probably want to make that to anyone. And then if you want to come in and check your audio settings, this comes back into the translation, the spoken language and the subtitle language, and the microphone that it's using for the subtitles. That's all sort of built into this together. So now if I come in and present this live, it goes to this screen. It takes it a second to pop up, but it's full screen in presentation mode. And if it doesn't come up automatically after a second or two, there it goes. You can just click the slide and it will come up. So with this, there's a URL and they all start with ppt.ms. And then that's a unique code for your presentation that you're doing. Or someone can take their smart device and scan that QR code. And then when I click again, down at the bottom right where it says show slides, it then takes me into my slideshow view. And since I have the captioning turned on, it's going to show the caption at the bottom too. So if people are in a place and they can't see your presentation, but they can join live like this, they can see it on their mobile device. And I have one more tip and trick. I have never used PowerPoint to do this, didn't know it could. But one fun, and I consider this just completely fun, you have the ability to remove the background from images or clip art, things like that. It's available in all versions of PowerPoint. And it's not just photos. Again, it's other images and clip art. And I think, well, why would you even want to do this? Well, sometimes you might have a photo and you only want to show the face of yourself or the other person to put in a brochure or to put, somewhere else on that slide deck. There's a lot of busy things around it. Well, this is a quick and easy way to do it. Now, I will say that there are other tools that will do this as well, and some of them do it better than others. But it is using artificial intelligence to do this. It is available on all versions of PowerPoint that I had totally forgotten about. But here's a image. This is my nephew when it was snowing earlier this year. And I picked this thinking that, okay, it's more of a silhouette type image. It would be easier to remove the background from it. Now, it depends on what your image is to how well it will do this. But when I came in, I selected the image. I clicked the picture tab and then the picture format and said remove background. And what you see on the right-hand side is what Microsoft PowerPoint thought it was doing to remove the background. It did a really good job on the lower half, but on the upper half, it didn't work so well. Now, I use a tool with my Adobe license that we have with UT and use Adobe Express. I have found that it was really easy and a little bit more accurate in the images that I've selected. Yeah, Maurice is talking about using this all the time. It is a really cool tool, and you're not having to go into Photoshop or something and actually draw and do it. It's a click of a button. So super quick, super simple to do this, but when you need it, you need it. So those are a bunch of more technical, things about PowerPoint. I'm going to turn it over to Kelly, and we want to go back home to the basics of it. And Kelly, would you like the transcription to be on, or would you like me to turn it off?
It is up to you. I'm good either way.
Well, let's leave it on and we'll just demonstrate what we have preached.
Okay. All right. Very good. David, are you going to be able to advance the
Yes,
slides on
ma'am.
this? Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. Well, so for my part of the presentation today, I wanted to go back and kind of refresh our memories on some of the basics. I know here in Missouri, we have a lot of new folks that are with Extension now. And I've seen some things that just can be improved in PowerPoints. So let's look at some of those. And again, you guys might probably already know this, but let's just talk about it a little bit again. And so, when I was in college, learning about communication, learning about doing presentations, there was kind of some rules of thumb that went along with doing PowerPoints. And one of the main things was just how much information you have on each slide. And if there's too much on a slide, people are just going to zone out. They're not going to read all of that. So the goal is to keep it very simple, keep it short, keep it to the point, keep just a couple of things that you want people to remember. We don't want to overload them with information in each slide. And so we like to see no more than 5 to 7 lines per slide. I've even seen some people suggest that no more than 3 lines per slide. And within those lines, you want just a few words. You don't want a whole paragraph. So 5 to 7 words is ideal. And then when you are doing the presentation, you want it to last no more than 5 to 7 minutes per slide. So that is kind of the goal. So again, short, to the point. And when you are putting your presentations together, having a consistent, easy to understand layout is also important. In my presentations that I do, I like bulleted lists. It's just easy, it's easy to read, it's consistent, and that's what I like to do. All right, next. So this is an example of what you don't want to do. And these are just some examples I have found on the internet. So this was a good example of just too much on a slide. Okay, there's just too much information there. Nobody's going to be able to read that in a classroom situation. And even if this was printed out for your attendees, that's still going to be really hard to read once it's printed out. I don't know about you guys, but here in Missouri, most of our handouts for our classes are in black and white. So you also need to think about that color contrast, how it's going to look when it's printed out as well. And so, yeah, not only is this slide very busy, there's a lot of information on it. The color contrast is off, and there's just too much going on. So this is an example of what not to do. Another thing to think of is one idea per slide. And so this is an example of several ideas per slide. So this again is just something that I took off the internet on how to make a good first impression. So if you were doing, for example, a presentation on this, rather than put all of these tips in one slide, there's 4 tips here. So I would break those up into 4 different slides, decrease the amount of information and just hit 2 or 3 points with each of these suggestions here. Again, your audience is going to get more out of that. They're going to be better able to remember just a few highlights rather than paragraphs of information. So another thing that you might do is consider replacing a lot of words with visuals. And I do this a lot in my presentations. Now, of course, my entire presentation is not just photos. I do have some good information in there as well. But I find that in my subject area of horticulture and small farms that people like to take notes. So often I will put a photo like this in my presentations and then just talk about it. And then my audience can take notes, but they can also look at the photos as I'm describing it and take notes on things that they might use. So, for example, in this particular slide, we're talking about staking dahlias. And we could talk about several different things with these photos. We could talk about some different ways to stake these plants, why you want to stake these plants, and again, just keep it simple and have good, easy to understand photos that you use as well. Another thing that you really want to be mindful of is the colors that you use. In my next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about color blindness, but you want to think about the fact that everyone in your audience may have different eye issues. I know as I get older, my eyesight is definitely not what it used to be. And whenever I have a slide like this, I have a really hard time kind of picking out the good information in there. So this is an example of what you don't want to use. We have a lot of bright color contrasts in there. It's very hard to see. The text color font is clashing with the background color. So this is definitely not something you want to do. Keep it simple, keep your colors simple, and avoid these types of bright colors. You also want to think about your fonts, and this is one that would be really hard to read in a classroom situation. So consider that as well. When you're choosing your fonts, you want it to be, oh, I don't know what that was, but yeah, when you're choosing your fonts, you want to make sure that it's easy to read. And another thing that I have run across recently is that some people can't read cursive. That's hard for some of us that grew up writing in cursive to understand, but they don't teach cursive writing in school like they used to. So a lot of people struggle to read it, whether it be handwritten or in a presentation. So keep the script easy to read, no fancy scripts, and you will definitely be able to have a better presentation that way. And yeah, just kind of touching on this color blindness issue. I have a colleague that does presentations for people with disabilities, and this is one thing that she talks about in some of her presentations is the fact that more people have color blindness than we realize sometimes. So when you're thinking about color combinations, keep this in mind. We want color combinations with a high contrast. So black and white, something very easy to read in case you have someone in your audience that struggles with this. If you have other suggestions of things that you have used for color blindness, put it in the chat so that we can learn from each other. But this is something that we definitely need to be mindful of. Okay, and that is what I have. And this is the people on your teaching and educational technologies committee. Reach out to us if you have questions or topics that you would like to learn more about. And David, with that, I'll turn it back over to you if you want to close us out.
Yeah, if anyone does have any questions, just put those in the chat. I see that Melanie is on here with us along with Scott. We are, all of our committee meetings are going to be held before the NACAA conference this year in Dallas. So Teaching in Technologies will be meeting on June the 25th at 3 p.m. Eastern. So if you or any of your colleagues, we would appreciate you jumping on that Zoom meeting, and all the committees are doing this year for your input. What would you like to see our committee do? What's more information? So during that week in June, please try to attend as many of those committee meetings as you're interested in. And again, Scott will be sending out the link for all of that. So please, come in and do that. We appreciate you attending today and watching the recording in the future, and hope that you've picked up some good tips that you can come in and use in your presentations for your extension clientele. If not any questions, thank you for your participation today.